Frank Clark back there for the second season and getting there with another impressive postseason run. Both of his 2 seasons since he was traded from Seattle kind of mirrored each other in that underwhelming regular season production and then being a huge part of what has been a good defense, a good run for the lesser unit, sort of the forgotten unit on their team, which is the defense, to get to the Super Bowl. And that question of, as we talked about, Seattle needs to get some more pass rush. Do we revisit the trade again and wonder if Seattle made the right decision?
The Seahawks got 2 draft picks. The Chiefs got 2 Super Bowls. The Chiefs have had 7 sacks the last 2 postseasons. The Chiefs have seen 22 pressures in the last 2 playoffs from Frank Clark. That's first in the league. It's tied with Nick Bosa. Holy crap. Bosa's only played in one of those postseasons. He's been really productive in the biggest moments. And to get 2 sacks of a guy like Josh Allen in the AFC Championship game, that isn't easy. I mean, Josh Allen is a big boy to bring down.
He's also their second best defensive lineman. And I think I come
Behind
back
Chris
to
Jones.
this. Yeah, Chris Jones is their better lineman. Chris Jones is just such a problem at defensive tackle.
Punch dude's getting away with it.
Yeah, he did. The other thing that I come back to with him is he's the guy you can afford when your quarterback's on a rookie contract. I know Mahomes has the new extension, but the money really hasn't started counting. It's a different scale. I think Seattle did the right thing in the trade. They ended up getting 2 draft picks that have essentially become 3 players, but they also got a massive amount of spending room because they got L.J. Collier, they got Damian Lewis, and they got Alton Robinson. We know those are the players they got for the picks that they traded. But they also had the spending room to acquire Jadeveon Clowney, to a lesser extent Ziggy Ansah, which might as well set that on fire. Mm-hmm. I don't think they trade for Carlos Dunlap. And he has to be part of that conversation as well, because that was some of the money that didn't go to Frank Clark.
That's true. Look at it from this perspective, if you're just going to bring up Dunlap. Would you rather have Dunlap or Clark?
Clark.
Would you rather have Clark or Dunlap, Collier, Damian Lewis, and Alton Robinson? Because that's what ultimately you got with the draft picks that you traded, that you got in that trade for Frank Clark.
That's where I go. I'd rather have the package that you got. And in part, that's because, hey, Frank Clark stayed healthy, and there's no guarantee that happens. But you got 2 starters and a prospect right now. You've gotten 2 L.J. Collier is a starting defensive end. That 5 technique, non-pass rusher start. He is a starting defensive end that's not a pass rusher in this league. You got what looks to be a very good guard in Damian Lewis. And Alton Robinson, who he's got some promise as a pass rusher. I'm not sure how he'll turn out. And then you eventually got your way. You got a season of Jadeveon Clowney, and you got Carlos Dunlap. I think that was the right. I think Seattle made the right call.
On paper, I mean, they did. The problem that I can't quite get past is that you need defensive playmakers to win. You saw it from the Bucs. Jason Pierre-Paul and Shaquille Barrett owned the Green Bay Packers, and what was a pretty good offensive line. Yes, no David Bakhtiari, but they did whatever they wanted. And I look at Kansas City, and they have a guy who makes plays in the playoffs, and I think that the Seahawks were missing an extra playmaker in those playoffs. And while they were better at guard because they had Damian Lewis and they had depth with Collier and Robinson, and we'll see what those guys are able to do eventually, having a guy that is a theoretical game wrecker like Clark, even if he isn't that guy during the regular season, and he wasn't. He had a rough regular season this past year. It's hard for me to say definitively, you know what, I'd take that package over Clark.
But it's also the comparison, can you afford to pay him when your quarterback's making that much money? He's the luxury you get when you got the cost-controlled quarterback. I mean, honestly, that's if you paid Frank Clark that salary, not to mention the guys that we just had, are you making the trade for Jamal Adams? Are you gonna then spike because Jamal Adams is gonna have a contract that's at the top of his? That was the problem. Frank Clark, it wasn't just, hey, he wants a lot of. He wanted he's not one of the best defensive ends in the league, and he got paid like one of the best defensive ends in the league. And it's hard to do that. It's much harder to do that when your quarterback's taking up as big a footprint in the salary cap. It's much easier for a team like Kansas City to say, yeah, we'll roll and do that.
It's true, but there's a part of me, too. We always talk about the quarterback contract. I'm not going to act as if a quarterback contract is some big limitation. There's another contract that doesn't make any sense. We all know what it is. It's Bobby Wagner's. That contract makes no sense. He's a middle linebacker. Okay, and I get all the stuff that he brings to the table off the field, and he had a very good season this past year. I don't think it was a great all-pro year. I think there were other linebackers that were better than him. It's $18 million for a middle linebacker. And it's not to say cut him, but I feel like that's more of the limitation on what you can do with the rest of the defenders than it is Russell Wilson.
That might be underestimating the value of the middle linebacker, though, because he doesn't make the kind of plays that you tend to focus on or fixate on because he doesn't make sacks. I mean, is the entire middle linebacker economy just an absolute, and maybe it is. Maybe the entire middle linebacker economy is an absolute farce, and that's a terrible way to spend money.